March, the start of spring across the United States. The last winter storms are moving through, bringing warmer weather that many welcome as the final aches of winter wane. Even so, this warmer weather does not come without its drawbacks. With an increase in temperature, it means an increase in severe weather conditions. While the Deep South and Texas typically get the bulk of severe thunderstorms this early in the season, there are times where that norm breaks. Throughout the second week of March, a combination of warmer air moving through the eastern half of the United States, rich Gulf moisture, and a powerful upper atmospheric trough allowed for an outlier to occur. Instead of the traditional areas of the Deep South, a major tornado outbreak was imminent for the Midwest. However, in another outlier, this was going to occur on March 14th, which was the exact same day another big outbreak occurred the previous year. While the truth can be stranger than fiction sometimes, what cannot be denied is the immense potential of this outbreak. A discrete mode for much of the Mississippi River Valley and a semi-discrete mode for much of Missouri and Illinois were a recipe for disaster. And as the night of March 14th unfolded, it became apparent that this was going to be a worst-case scenario. It would only continue to get worse, as for the first time since 2012, a Day 2 high risk was issued for the Deep South, calling for a potentially catastrophic outbreak to unfold across much of the United States. I, with the help of Brenden and John, are going to go over this outbreak from the first cell firing to the final tornado touchdown. I got under a tornado warning. The second week of March is a time when many are on spring break and others are getting ready for the spring season. With warmer temperatures, however, comes the increased risk of severe weather and the inevitable risk of tornadoes. This risk would begin to materialize on March 9th, 2025, as the Storm Prediction Center issued their first outlook for the ensuing outbreak. The first indication of the incoming threat would be a 15% risk for Day 6, which was Friday, March 14th, across the Mississippi Valley, extending from Iowa and Illinois down to Texas and Louisiana. There was also a 15% risk for Day 7, which was Saturday, March 15th, for a concentrated area in the Deep South encompassing Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and western Georgia. While much of the dynamics were yet to be ironed out, the overall pattern was, quote, very favorable for a regional severe weather episode from late Friday afternoon into early Saturday morning. The next day, the risks became a lot clearer as more model data came in and painted a very grim picture of the outbreak. The SPC put out a 30% risk for both March 14th and 15th, which is a rapid escalation, but when you look at the data deeper, it becomes exponentially more dire. Looking at Colorado State University's severe weather outlook, from March 9th to March 10th, the max severe weather index actually fell from 41% to 36.5% for March 14th, while becoming more concentrated due to the uncertainty with intensity. However, for March 15th, the max risk increases from 31.6% all the way to 50%, a massive spike that would be equivalent to a moderate risk. CSU measures severe risk through a blend of modeled shear, convective available potential energy, or CAPE for short, and moisture, all ingredients needed to produce severe convection. And the reason for this surge in severe risk, outlined by the SPC, was due to more confidence in the models, better quality moisture, and an environment that supported both a discrete supercell mode and a squall line setup. For tornadoes, a discrete setup is significantly more advantageous due to supercells being able to take advantage of ripe conditions and other storms would not be able to interfere with tornado development. So hearing this from the SPC was very scary, as tornadoes, very large hail, and damaging winds were likely from this event. When did you first hear about the severe risk that was going to be present?
I saw like a slight risk of, I think it was day 5, and then once we got to day 4, there was a 30%, and I'm like, okay, this is ramping up. Initially, I thought, oh, it's all gonna head south. We got, discrete action to the south, and then, we just get our typical QLCS up north.
Pat, if I'm being honest, I think he was actually in conversations with our cohort, our group, over in the Discord server. I wasn't really keeping as much track of this event as I should have relative to other events that I've chased, but I do know that in talking with my peers and talking with you, this was just going to be pretty darn good setup.
On March 12th, the SPC issued a Day 3 enhanced risk for severe weather for much of the Mississippi Valley, from northern Illinois to central Mississippi. This entire risk was put under a 30% hatched risk, meaning that there was an elevated risk for strong tornadoes, which are classified as EF2 to EF5 tornadoes, hail larger than 2 inches in diameter, and wind gusts exceeding 75 miles per hour. The models were indicating a tale of 2 storm modes, a squall and wind-driven setup for the northern half of the risk zone, and a discrete supercell mode for the southern half of the zone. However, there was still uncertainty regarding the timing of the event and where that line between the 2 modes would set up. At the same time, the 30% risk from March 15th was maintained as the SPC only issues comprehensive risks 3 days out. A lot more information was now present for the March 15th setup, and it became clear that a supercell mode was the main driver in the Deep South. However, there was still uncertainty regarding how the severe weather event for the day before would carry into the Deep South the next day. If the storms overperformed and then entered the Deep South, it would kill any chance for severe convection, as the morning convection could very easily take all the moisture and cape away and result in a potential severe weather outbreak busting. The SPC did note that a higher risk may be needed if confidence continued to increase in the coming days. At this point, tens of millions were on high alert, as the event was shaping up to potentially be one of the biggest outbreaks in years. As many were starting to prepare for the upcoming weather, events were already underway across much of the eastern half of the United States that would allow for this outbreak to take place. A major moisture infusion from the Gulf began to move through the region due to southerly winds carrying that rich Gulf air further to the north. A warming trend had also been observed across the Midwest and Deep South, resulting in more instability moving into these areas, and the potential for an explosive severe weather event began to increase dramatically.
It kept ramping up, and I'm like looking at models, and I'm like, okay, this is looking a lot more serious than when I initially saw the severe risk on.
The overnight hours of March 13th brought a sense of dread for tens of millions, as at 1 a.m. Central Daylight Time, the SPC issued a moderate risk for severe weather for March 14th. The risk encompassed much of Illinois, eastern Missouri, and surrounding areas, putting St. Louis right smack in the middle of this rapidly evolving event. Interestingly, the moderate risk was not for tornadoes, but extreme wind gusts, as a 45% hatched risk was issued for the moderate risk zone. The tornado threat was held at 10% hatched, while the hail was at a 30% hatched risk, both supporting enhanced risk criteria. The SPC still supported a squall setup as the primary hazard for the moderate risk, believing that the storms would develop rapidly and then quickly form a massive squall line due to the fast motion and steeper lapse rates, which are the air rates an air parcel cools as it increases in altitude. A curious tidbit the SPC highlighted was that the moisture was somewhat modest. Cape values were expected to only be about 1,500 joules per kilogram, and heating ahead of the cold front would propel the outbreak. Keep these in mind as we will revisit these soon. 90 minutes later, the SPC issued the Day 3 risk, and the outlook became a lot grimmer. Another moderate risk was issued for Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama for March 15th. With a 45% hatched risk highlighted. Here, the SPC highlighted a much more discrete setup than the day before, with a more divergent setup supporting supercell development across the Deep South, with all hazards likely. Cape values were expected to peak at around 2,000 joules per kilogram, which seems a little low for this kind of setup, And that's because it was. In the previous 2 days, there were a lot of question marks regarding the setup of the event on March 14th. The squall setup was questionable by many meteorologists due to a lower cape profile and the possibility of models overmixing. Overmixing occurs when cool, dry air is pulled down to the surface, potentially choking a possible discrete mode in favor of a squall line setup. Because of the presence of rapidly increasing gulf moisture, along with a jet that was stronger than forecast, led many to question if the overmixing was exaggerated. On the night of March 13th, the 0Z models gave us a clear answer, and it was unfortunately an answer many were not too pleased with.
What I call a windbag is going to be.
That is very problematic, what I'm looking at on COD.
We're seeing more shear in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Hold on, I have to go for a minute. Sorry.
You know what?
Go
I
for
may
it.
be eating my words on the 10 sig. I think they actually keep it.
The HER model was initially supportive of a squall line across much of eastern Missouri and Illinois, with a discrete mode in parts of the boot heel of Missouri through Mississippi. However, the 0Z run began to come out around 8 p.m., and my reaction speaks for itself. The 0Z HER, as well as several other models that night, suddenly switched to a much more discrete and supercellular mode of severe weather. This meant that instead of the north-south split initially forecast, instead it was a far more gradual setup. The extreme northern part of the line remained a squall setup, but the middle part, ranging from central Illinois to east central Missouri, was far more discrete, with hybrid supercell and squall line development now anticipated for the St. Louis metro area, putting them in far more danger than before. The discrete mode of the line pushed at least 300 miles further to the north, now expanding from just south of the St. Louis metro all the way down to Mississippi. For March 15th, the outlook appeared way worse as well, as after the previous night storms moved through the deep south, a cluster of very strong supercells was modeled to start forming and produce very damaging tornadoes across the south. From the looks of it, it appeared that the March 14th event was only the appetizer, and the March 15th event was the main course for this outbreak. The day of March 14th started off with mostly cloudy skies across much of the Mississippi River Valley, with the moderate risk expanding further northwest to encompass parts of northern Missouri and southern Iowa. The day was also incredibly windy across the Midwest in parts of the Great Plains due to the presence of a stronger than expected jet at the lower levels, enhancing the wind shear in that region. That and more moisture than anticipated helped fuel a more destructive storm mode.
I know we had a lot of winds. I think it was like up to 50 to 55 miles an hour that day. It was basically just that type of day where I'm like, okay, there's something definitely coming. What was kind of crazy was, I was, at work that day, and I'm like, we're monitoring this very, very closely. I was like, okay, when is this gonna hit? Because this is kind of a type of serious situation. As time got closer, the winds just kept going, and even hours before the storm, those could even produce power outages.
The SBC expanding the moderate risk further south in 2 subsequent updates. The first update was issued at 11:30 a.m., expanding the risk into western Tennessee and northern Mississippi. The second update was issued at 3 p.m., as skies began to turn partly cloudy and the outbreak was about to start. This update expanded the risk to extreme northeastern Louisiana and through most of Mississippi, with a 15% hatch tornado risk issued from central Illinois down to the deep south. Unfortunately, these 2 updates were overshadowed by a situation that had not occurred in 13 years. In between these updates, a day 2 risk was issued from the March 15th event at 12:30 p.m., and this outlook stole all the headlines. When the SPC issued that high risk, everyone was put on high alert. This was the first time since April 13th, 2012, that a day 2 high risk was issued, and only the 3rd time in history that this occurred. The conditions were ripe, and all hell was about to break loose. and at 1 p.m., the first mesoscale discussion revolving around the main event was posted by the SPC. This discussion indicated that a rapidly developing squall line was expected to initiate in the next couple of hours along the Kansas-Missouri border, and by 2:30 p.m., convection was already starting to fire. Severe thunderstorm warnings were issued as these thunderstorms crossed into Missouri. Thus, the outbreak began. At 4 p.m., the first tornado watch was issued by the SPC for much of Missouri, northern Arkansas, and western Illinois, highlighting a high probability of strong tornadoes, 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts or greater, along with at least a moderate probability of hail larger than 2 inches in diameter. This was not helped by the fact that wind gusts of over 50 miles per hour were observed across much of the region, leading to numerous power outages before the outbreak truly began.
That day, we actually lost power like a few hours before the initial severe weather actually hit us. And that kind of made, things a little more serious for us, more dangerous for us, especially as time got closer to when the main event would, come through. Basically, that would kind of like inhibit how, we got our warnings.
In the next hour, the squall line began to develop a more semi-discrete mode than initially expected, with embedded supercells starting to become more evident on radar as the storms began to move towards the Springfield, Missouri area. This became evident as the first tornado warning of the night was issued for eastern Greene County at 5:55 p.m., warning of the possibility of a tornado along with ping-pong ball-sized hail. The next tornado warning was issued at 6:33 p.m. Central Daylight Time for Webster and Wright counties just east of Springfield, this time warning for golf ball-sized hail as the line continued to intensify. While all this was happening, Storms United was hosting a stream to alert those in the path of these intensifying storms, and because of the strong winds ahead of these storms, the stream stopped abruptly due to temporarily losing power. A little bit of foreshadowing, if you ask me.
On the Jefferson City storm looks.
This
It looks pretty.
tornado.
My lights flickered for just a second. Hold up.
Yeah.
Is your stream still
No,
going?
we're good.
On
We're good
YouTube?
for now, but my lights flickered for a second, and that scared the heck out of me.
We're at
I'm gonna end the stream on my
130,
side
140
because
miles
it's
an hour.
been my thing's gone. By 7 p.m., more storms are firing further south in northern Arkansas, with these cells more discrete and separated than the complex further north. Within 30 minutes, the first severe warnings were issued, and at 8:11 p.m., the first tornado warning was issued in Arkansas. Mere minutes later, all hell began to break loose as the entire storm complex began to move into the moderate risk area. This was where the most unstable environment persisted, and as it entered this very dangerous area, many of the storms quickly intensified as the shear dramatically increased due to the low-level jet kicking in at the worst possible time. In the span of 15 minutes, 6 new tornado warnings were issued, 4 of them in east central Missouri, as these storms began to make a beeline towards St. Louis. At the same time, the cells further south began to produce significant long-track tornadoes that would rampage across the region throughout the night. The first major tornado of the outbreak touched down at 8:34 p.m. just south of the Arkansas-Missouri border in a community called Gamaliel. It then crossed into Missouri and began to intensify, destroying multiple homes along County Road 585 near Bakersfield. It eventually reached EF3 intensity as it swept a home away and tore the roof and some exterior walls of another. Some minimal ground scouring was reported in these locations, and it was estimated that the tornado's intensity peaked at this time with winds around 145 miles per hour. The tornado was also likely a wedge tornado, as its peak width was roughly 3/4 of a mile wide, as it mainly affected rural areas across southern Missouri. Throughout the tornado's path, it mainly stayed in rural areas, although there are a few tidbits to go over. As the tornado moved through a forest in Howell County, Missouri, it left behind, quote, cyclonic patterns right before re-strengthening to high-end EF2 intensity and obliterating a mobile home, resulting in 3 injuries. These cyclonic patterns continued as the tornado uprooted many trees as it then destroyed another mobile home. After this, the tornado fluctuated between EF0 and EF1 intensity before dissipating at 9:16 p.m. This tornado killed 3 people and injured 4 others, with most of the casualties in mobile homes despite it mostly affecting rural areas. The next tornado, however, was much more intense and lasted far longer. The 56 Larkin tornado touched down at 9:11 p.m. near Alco, Arkansas, and began to move towards the community of 56. This tornado initially remained weak, maintaining EF1 intensity before rapidly intensifying as it approached the community. It then struck 56 at low-end EF3 intensity, destroying mobile homes and shifting cabins off their foundations, resulting in decimation. Around this time, a remote automated weather system recorded a wind gust of 151 miles per hour in the vortex of the tornado, as it is estimated to have widened to roughly 1,000 yards. The tornado then moved into Izard County, as it mainly affected rural areas at EF2 intensity. The tornado then explosively intensified to EF4 strength as it swept and destroyed a well-built home and threw a vehicle into a pond behind the property. After the tornado briefly weakened, it then intensified to EF4 strength again, demolishing a well-anchored farm home while the main floor event was still attached to the foundation. Another brief period of weakening occurred before the tornado intensified to EF4 intensity for a 3rd time, destroying a home along EZK Road, severely injuring 2 people living there. Trees were severely debarked and a metal shop building was completely decimated. The tornado then continued into the Arkansas night, weakening and fluctuating to EF2 intensity as it mainly affected rural areas. The tornado then weakened to EF1 intensity as it crossed into the Boot Heel of Missouri before re-strengthening to EF2 intensity and inflicting major damage to multiple homes in Fairdealing, Missouri. After this encounter, and mainly destroying trees and power poles, the tornado unexpectedly lifted at 11:24 p.m., ending the longest track tornado of the outbreak. This was the first violent tornado in the state of Arkansas in 11 years, with the 2014 Valonia tornado being the last occurrence as well as the 3rd longest track tornado in Arkansas history. This was not the only violent tornado of the night in the state, as Arkansas was getting 2 for the price of 1, and at 11:13 p.m., the action resumed. This tornado touched down near DeParts, Arkansas, in Independence County, and then rapidly strengthened to low-end EF2 intensity, damaging several poultry homes before crossing into Jackson County. The tornado then rapidly intensified again, this time becoming violent as it struck a farmstead at EF4 intensity. The tornado then leveled an office building, soybean silos, and several large metal buildings were swept away. A trailer was thrown 100 yards as the tornado reached its peak width at 1 mile wide. After this, the tornado gradually weakened all the way down to EF1 intensity before completing the cycle and re-strengthened to high-end EF2 intensity before approaching Diaz. Here, the tornado exploded in intensity, reaching its peak strength at a 190 mile per hour high-end EF4 as it approached the community of Fitzgerald just outside of Diaz. A large anchor-built home was leveled and nearly swept off its foundation while more metal buildings were obliterated. After this peak, the tornado began to gradually weaken, mainly affecting rural areas before dissipating at 11:35 p.m. Miraculously, despite the violent nature of both EF4s, no one was killed, but 6 were injured, and millions of damage occurred despite the tornadoes mostly affecting rural areas.
Oh my god! Oh my god! Hurry!
The last big tornado on March 14th occurred at Poplar Bluff, Missouri, and touched down at 11:27 p.m. This tornado was significant due to the amount of storm chasers on this thunderstorm as it was producing this tornado, including Reed Timmer, Brandon Kopic, and Freddie McKinney. As the tornado approached Poplar Bluff, it reached its peak intensity of EF3 strength with winds of 145 miles per hour as it carved apart a block foundation home and leveled another older home off its foundation. After briefly weakening, it maintained EF1 to EF2 intensity as it approached Poplar Bluff before entering the western city limits. There, it damaged multiple businesses, Three Rivers College, and apartment buildings. The tornado then crossed Business US Route 60 as it tore through northern parts of Poplar Bluff. As the tornado exited Poplar Bluff, the tornado caught several storm chasers off guard and forced them to retreat from the storm as it became apparent that there was significant debris within the vortex. After exiting the town, the tornado maintained EF1 intensity before re-strengthening to EF3 intensity as it passed west of Rombauer. Here, the tornado destroyed a large percentage of a shop home, destroying roofs and exterior walls at homes, and uprooted trees. After this, the tornado slowly weakened before dissipating at 11:47 p.m. One person was killed, and 3 others were injured as the clock ticked closer to midnight. And this tornado became the perfect example of why nighttime tornadoes are the most dangerous. Hold on, we need to turn back the clock for a second. As this outbreak occurred in Missouri and Arkansas, another area was about to get hammered. The St. Louis area was about to get the brunt of it, and by 9 p.m., numerous tornado-warned storms were approaching the region. Many were caught off guard as thousands lost power in the hours before the outbreak, including John earlier. As the storms were approaching eastern Missouri and western Illinois, Brenden was on his way down from central Illinois to chase this outbreak. What he wasn't expecting was for all hell to break loose.
As I was heading down to Carlinville, I mentioned in the very beginning of our interview that this was a very impromptu chase. And as a chaser, that's usually not how you want to go, because if you're not fully prepared, there's going to be things you're missing. And that's exactly what happened to me. So I get down to Springfield, which is a bit of a halfway point to Carlinville from where I'm at. And I'm like, crap, I don't have a car charger. So I go buy a car charger at Best Buy. I stopped at the Best Buy, and I kind of made a bonehead decision. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to just get a car charger. I need a mount for my phone. And you'll see a lot of chasers have that to hold their phone, so that way you can navigate through Radar Scope or whatever weather app you use. Okay, great. So then I bought it. It was a charger and a mount. And I bought that instead of the car charger itself. Well, that ended up being a big mistake for me, because I should have just went with the car charger, because that ended up not working. Spoiler, but you'll see why in a second. So then I get down to Carlinville, and here I'm thinking throughout that entire drive that my phone was charging. It says it's charging, but I'm actually seeing it lose power. It's little by little by little, to where by the time I get to Carlinville, my phone is at 10%. Now, at this time, Pat, again, the other problem with being an impromptu chaser is you also don't have a real concrete game plan. And I really didn't. I knew that I wanted to be close to St. Louis, but I didn't know how far, right? I really didn't prepare as much as I would have liked in my prior chases, or relative to that. So as I saw my phone at 15%, I stopped in Carlinville, and at that point, I mean, it had to have been, 7:45, I believe. It was like really late at night. It got pretty much pitch black. And I remember being on the stream, and then as I'm talking, I think back and forth with you and then those that were helping you, well, I then noticed now my phone's at 5%. So, as you can tell from the story, for those listening, a very dumb decision by me, right? You live and learn. Should have been more prepared. But being at 5%, when it's 8 o'clock at night, and it's dark, and you really don't know your way around where you're chasing, can be really dicey. I was only a few months in of living in this region of Illinois. I'm originally from the Chicago suburbs, and so I didn't know this area as much as I know today. So that, coupled with my phone at such a low battery, I was very concerned that I would be driving blind. It got to a point where, again, it's dark. I get out of my car, because my car is parked. I'm on kind of a gridded road, so I'm kind of parked on the shoulder, and I'm basically facing the west, so I can see this beautiful lightning show from what was storms that were moving from the St. Louis metro, now crossing the Mississippi into places like Edwardsville and East St. Louis and Bellevue. As those storms grew closer, I knew that they were producing tornadoes. They already had, but I began to have a little bit of panic, because those southerly winds I talked about at the very beginning, well, these were even stronger now. I mean, the low-level jet was really cranking by the time we got to the evening. If I remember correctly, it was a nocturnal jet, so it just made it worse. Again, I might be overlapping to your next question here, Pat, I apologize, but from that point, I did begin to internally panic. because my phone was about to die. I was basically driving blind, and I knew that I had to quickly get out of there because the storms are going to be moving to my area within about 25 minutes. And I was on a bunch of gridded roads, and if you know anything about gridded roads, the only way to get out is if you zigzag your way out. Sometimes you hit at dead ends, sometimes the road itself will, not actually be going north, it's going to hook east, right? So I was really freaking out, and I think if you go back to the live stream, I was really worried for my safety at that point.
As we go back to my stream and Storms United's coverage of it, many of us were watching things unfold as we were both guiding Brenden on his chase while reading out the urgent warnings of the outbreak. But at 9:24 p.m., everything changed.
And 2,000 joules to near the Farmington, Missouri.
I heard that.
I'm under a tornado warning right now.
I hear that.
Yeah.
Is Pat under a tornado?
Yep.
Everyone quiet.
Get off stream now. Go into.
Do you have a basement?
Yeah, I got a basement. Don't worry about it. Yep. Yeah.
Go into it now. Don't care about the stream. I care more about your safety.
What resulted from this moment was utter chaos, perfectly emulating the events across the Mississippi Valley that night. My lights flickered for just a second. I'm under a tornado warning right now.
West to 270.
Hey guys, quick update. I'm getting some shoes. We're heading down to the basement right now. We're getting prepared. If you're in the tornado warning, seek shelter immediately.
Get inside your house.
The hook is getting stronger.
Hey, where did you say that tornado warning was? Mason City?
Yes,
Yeah,
it
Mason
was
City.
a
Yes, Mason City.
Oh, I gotta get off.
tornado emergency. Tornado.
Oh,
Tornado emergency.
Tornado emergency.
Van Buren.
Van Buren. Oh, here we go. Tornado emergency.
Chat, how you doing?
I'm
Van
doing
Buren.
good. We just
Then we got another.
We just got hail.
We got another PDS. We got another PDS in parts of Arkansas.
New tornado warning for St. Rose.
Guys, let's
3
stop talking
seconds,
over each
guys.
other.
I just got back. But yeah.
Hey, Pat, how are you?
Hey, Weather Kingdom, I'm back.
By the way,
Do you know what happened?
Guys, please, guys, shut up for 3 seconds.
I'm leaving this call. This is ridiculous.
This is-
People are talking over each other.
David, okay. What I like to do is I like to bring in a lot of people for help and all that stuff. But it's not helpful when everyone is talking over each other like this. Especially with such an event that's going on right now. We can't do that right now. And see, I know it sounds mean or anything like that, but this has to be said. And I hate to be that guy that causes drama. I hate to be that guy to do that. I'm sorry, but this cannot happen. The next day was the high-risk day, and given the crazy events of the night before, many expected a worst-case scenario for the Deep South. That morning, the line from the previous night re-intensified due to increased instability and began to revamp the outbreak. From 10 a.m. until noon, at least 7 tornado warnings were issued for Louisiana and Mississippi. One noticeable tornado from this sequence occurred shortly after noon, and it would be the crowning moment of the day. This tornado would touch down at 12:17 p.m. near Kentwood, Louisiana, and quickly strengthen to EF2 intensity as it entered Mississippi. As the tornado entered Walthall County, it struck the Paradise Ranch RV Resort, decimating all the cabins and over 200 campsites. After this, the tornado rapidly intensified and reached EF4 strength, destroying a well-built home and multiple manufactured homes along the way. The tornado then weakened and fluctuated between EF2 and EF3 intensity as it caused widespread damage to trees and whatever structures were in its path, resulting in 3 deaths as it crossed into Marion County. Here, the tornado destroyed numerous homes as it moved across rural areas in Mississippi before striking White Bluff at EF3 intensity. After that, the tornado briefly re-intensified to EF4 strength as it leveled a well-built home. The tornado then rapidly weakened and dissipated at 1:39 p.m., staying on the ground for 82 minutes, killing 6 people and injuring 14 others, making this the deadliest tornado of the outbreak. However, After this and another EF3 tornado that caused significant damage in Tylertown, Mississippi, the outbreak began to fizzle out, as the supercells and the environment from the night before significantly overperformed. The resulting storms carried over into the next morning in the deep south, and the morning convection significantly reduced the amount of instability in the atmosphere. Despite that, there were storms in unexpected places, including numerous isolated severe thunderstorms in northeastern Indiana and near the Detroit area in Michigan, but the main event had thankfully busted due to the events of March 14th, and the assessment of the outbreak could begin. What's the immediate aftermath like for you?
I remember after the storm hit, I went upstairs and kind of looked outside to kind of see what actually happened. And in my general area, I would say, we didn't have a whole lot of damage. I know up the street we had a lot of tree damage. And that was what I realized later. Got out of the house the next day, is there was a whole lot of tree damage and trees down on the roads and all that. Right after the storm, I remember going outside and it was just pitch black. You couldn't see anything. Sirens were going off, but there was literally no sign of light, anywhere. It's just like that. A lot of people lost power from this.
Really, I just woke up that morning and I saw the photos begin to come in of the damage that happened across St. Louis and then even into the Illinois side. And seeing everybody's video. There was a couple. I think there was one that somebody from the St. Louis International Airport took a video, and a couple others that were within downtown vicinity. In a way, for me as a chaser, I'm like, man, I can't believe I didn't get that. I didn't get that footage. But then at the same time, it was, well, thank God I didn't, because I was in no capacity to even do so in the first place.
This tornado outbreak became the largest tornado outbreak of the month of March in recorded history, beating out the March 31st outbreak with 118 tornadoes compared to 115 on March 31st. The risk on March 14th in many cases overperformed due to the excessive amount of supercells across the southern Missouri, northern Arkansas region. It was also not helped that the winds ahead of these thunderstorms were as high as 65 miles per hour, knocking out power for many ahead of the outbreak. It also caught many storm chasers off guard that were in this outbreak, Brenden included, and the result of many near misses will likely lead to a reinforcement of safety while chasing and stricter rules set in case of an emergency. On the evening of March 14th, 53 tornadoes touched down, with more than half of them being classified as strong tornadoes, 19 EF2s, 8 EF3s, and 2 EF4s. Most of these tornadoes were in Missouri and Arkansas, although there were other noteworthy situations. In the St. Louis area, 8 tornadoes touched down during the outbreak as the semi-discrete line of supercells moved through the area, 4 EF1s and 4 EF2s. As for Brenden, because he wasn't fully prepared for his chase, his phone battery almost died, and he had to rely on my stream that night to navigate his way back home, and there were several close calls for him that night. As a result of the chaos of the outbreak and our stream from that night, I implemented stricter controls on who could be on stream and how many at a time we could have on to prevent this from happening again. I also had to remove people from streaming in the future so this situation wouldn't happen again. It was a pretty crazy stream all around. I do apologize for how things got out of hand, especially while I was not here seeking shelter from the severe risk I was in. And I also wanted to announce that Tristan is no longer going to be streaming with us. I've already let him know. We gotta become a lot more professional. That was on our part. That was our fault, and I do want to apologize for that. That said, it was a chaotic night, and a lot of people were caught off guard, including seasoned storm chasers and forecasters. The outbreak for March 15th was a different story, and thankfully for the better. 49 tornadoes touched down, 16 of which were classified as strong tornadoes, 12 EF2s, 3 EF3s, and 1 EF4. However, due to the previous night's events, a stronger than expected morning storm mode significantly reduced the instability, and the storms that did fire remained mostly linear and in a less favorable environment for tornadoes. Instead, the main threat that afternoon was damaging wind once all the supercells merged into a squall line as the day persisted. In total, 24 people were killed in this outbreak, 13 on March 14th and 11 on March 15th, and at least 67 were injured, 37 on March 14th and 30 on March 15th, with an estimated cost of $11 billion. That total makes this the costliest tornado outbreak in US history, although this figure is not adjusted for inflation. Almost 700,000 power outages were reported, with a very large percentage of them before the outbreak even occurred due to up to 65-mile-per-hour winds ahead of the storms. Do you have any advice you would like to give to those watching this documentary?
If you live in a metropolitan area, don't think that you're immune to tornadoes. I just talked about Chicago and how we don't get significant tornadoes, but that's not to say that we can't. What we saw in St. Louis should be a wake-up call to those that live in cities that go, you know what? Well, it happens there, but it can't happen to me. You have to get out of that mindset, because at the end of the day, as we see, Pat, over the last few years across the Midwest, Tornado Alley is shifting. Higher frequency of tornadoes are happening in areas that you see it happening in Kansas in the 2000s, but now is happening here in Illinois. Don't think that it can't happen to you. There is always a probability that it can. And the more you're prepared, not from a chaser perspective, but as a person, to, have safety procedures in place, know where to go to take shelter, the better off you'll be in handling these kind of events.
Any advice I would say is have multiple ways to receive warnings, definitely, because on my personal experience, when this happens, we lost power, and that kind of can impact how we, get our ways to receive warnings and stuff. Have a weather radio. Don't rely on tornado sirens. That's like one of your options, but don't rely on tornado sirens. Have a weather radio. If you do have cellular connection, activate those wireless emergency alerts, get those tornado warnings. Even keep an eye on the radar if you're a weather enthusiast and say, hey, there's a storm coming. Get everyone to the basement and all that. You'll be just fine.
One thing that is surprising was the low number of casualties from the stronger, more violent tornadoes. 2 of the EF4s had no deaths, while the weaker tornadoes had a higher number of casualties. Many of these, however, were in mobile homes and other not well-built structures, and even an EF0 can cause significant damage if you are not in a sturdy shelter. This outbreak proved it. This outbreak also affected a lot of rural areas compared to other notable storms, such as Greenfield in 2024 and the March 31st outbreak. If there is one lesson that can be taken from this, it is that even a weaker tornado has the capacity to cause life-threatening destruction to life and property, and a battery-powered radio will come in handy if you lose power, especially right before an outbreak. That said, thank you all for watching. I am Pat's Path Predictor, and I hope you enjoyed this trip down memory lane. Be sure to like, subscribe, share this documentary, and stay safe.